The bullets of firearms are the projectiles that are attached to the capsules or ballistic casings, which contain charges of determined gunpowder, ready to be ejected in a straight line, by means of a spark that generates chemical energy, which converges to a very high mechanical energy. Aggressive and powerful, which, when passing through a tube called the cannon, ends up giving it a route or trajectory, measured depending on the amount of gunpowder that is released, in relation to the size of the projectile. A definition that sounds somewhat simple as far as it goes, but nothing is further from reality, and that is that behind it, there is an extraordinary chemical engineering and physics, which upon understanding it, instantly turns anyone into a weapons handler. To understand how it all started, we must travel back in time and go back to the 9th century, starting with how the main raw material of a bullet was invented. Gunpowder. It was discovered in China, when the Taoists were trying to create a potion for immortality. Yes, you heard, the ancient Chinese Taoists were looking to be immortal, and with such an invention, it backfired on them. Gunpowder consists of proportions of 75% potassium nitrate, 15% carbon, and 10% sulfur. Already in the 10th to 12th centuries, when the Mongols tried to enter Chinese lands through the northern border, Chinese troops used gunpowder-based weapons, such as rockets, muskets, cannons, and explosives such as grenades, and various types of bombs. After the Mongols conquered China and established the Yuan dynasty, they reverse-engineered and used Chinese military technology in an attempt to invade Japan, where they also used gunpowder to power their rockets. The Chinese were quick to use gunpowder in a more cunning way in the warfare of the day, and over the next few centuries, produced a variety of firearms, including flamethrowers, rockets, bombs, and mines, before inventing firearms. Modern firearms using metal pellets. Archaeological evidence has been found of hand cannons dating to the late 13th century in Manchuria, and explosive bombs were found in a shipwreck off the coast of Japan, dating back to the Mongol invasion of Japan in 1281. Invented in China, gunpowder spread to the Middle East, and from there it was imported to Europe. The distribution of Chinese gunpowder in Asia is largely due to the Mongols. One of the earliest examples of Europeans using firearms against armies was the Battle of Moshi in 1241. In this battle, the Mongols used gunpowder in both their firearms and hand grenades. During the following centuries, the advances remained linear and without much discrepancy. It was not until the 17th century that the so-called rifle was invented. Instead of using a matchlock, he used a flintlock for instant fire. By 1830, this wrench was replaced by an impact wrench, which allowed the shot to be fired immediately when the trigger was pulled. Around the same time, other improvements were made to the rifles, to provide greater range, lethality, and consistency of fire. The invention of the cartridge rifle in the 1840s shortened the reload time of the ammunition, and allowed the rifle to be used in a variety of positions. The cartridges, originally, were wrapped in cardboard or waxed cloth, and contained a small amount of gunpowder, called propellant charge, and round bullets. Some broke when the cartridge was loaded into the rifle. Then cartridges were invented that already contained the bait, which shortened the reload time. Soon after, the cartridge was manufactured as it is today. It consisted of a metal cylinder, called a case, that contained the ammunition, with a primer, now called a percussion cap, in the center of the edge of the lower part of the case. Closing parenthesis dot. The bullet was lodged in the muzzle of the casing. Bullet casings and alloys began in the 1830s, to prevent the bullets from deforming, causing instability in their flight. The first alloy was bismuth and lead, and the first coating was copper over lead. Materials that can still be seen in ammunition today. Having heard this brief summary of the history of ammunition, let's enter the field of chemistry and physics behind it. When a shot is fired, two deflagration cones are manifested, one posterior and one anterior. In other words, a setback and a progression, in which a series of physical and chemical reactions take place, which determine the production of gunpowder residue. Nitrites and nitrates, traces of lead, traces of copper, from the detonator, or from the initiating charge, such as barium and antimony, which are generically called gunshot residue. Once the cartridge is detonated, just as our planet Earth rotates and moves, The bullet performs a physical translation movement, followed by a rotation movement, which is demanded by the curvilinear lines inside the barrel, resulting into a flying projectile of supersonic speeds, which travels through space like the wick of a drill, a reaction that causes an enormous charge of kinetic energy when hitting a target. This science behind a bullet is what makes it so lethal for a human body, since the only problem is not the entry and exit orifice. The biggest problem is the expansive shock wave, which causes the kinetic energy that load the projectile. And like everything else, these physical events have variations that are dictated by the different types of firearm calibers, be it in a diminutive degree or in a superlative degree. And leaving aside the field of physics, the calibers of firearms are the variance in dimensions or size, which characterizes each type of bullet, based on each category of weapon, be it pistol, revolver, carbine, etc., rifle, shotgun, sniper, etc., which dictates the amount of power or the speed of the bullet. This classification is governed by the function for which the projectile is made, whether for targets at short distances, targets at long distances, armored materials, or several targets at the same time, among others. And since I know that they are already delegating action, below are a series of powerful calibers of firearms, according to each category. We start with the 45 ACP caliber, for short-distance pistols. This is a very forceful cartridge for short arms, with an effective range of 50 meters, which was manufactured by John Moses Browning in 1905, for the M1911 pistol. Its cap has a charge of 90 grains of black powder, which gives it a speed of between 260 and 442 meters per second, which combined with its relatively heavy weight of 16 grams, offers more than lethal stopping power for any moving and immobile target. And in the revolver category, we go with the 44 Remington Magnum cartridge, which is a large caliber designed at the beginning by Remington, for the Model 29 revolver in 1955. It was called the most powerful cartridge for short arms, due to the 160 grains of gunpowder that its casing contains, giving it an enormous energy of 20-40 pounds when hitting a target, and with an excellent effective range of about 150 meters away. For the shotgun category, 12-gauge ammunition is a type of shotgun cartridge, which is characterized by impacting the largest possible range of area, because it is not a bullet unit that travels through space, but rather, of a certain amount of metallic projectiles, which can be from 2 to hundreds of small balls, which when impacting with any medium soft material and at short distances, generates a stupidly unmanageable lethality.
It almost looks like a meteor strike. Like if there was a meteor.
For the following calibers, we will go into deep water, starting with the 5.56 cartridge, which is used by the famous M16 assault rifle and M4 carbine. The 5.56 is a peculiar caliber, with only 62 to 90 grains of gunpowder, but with a small 3-gram bullet, achieving an extremely efficient combination, because this light weight gives it a speed of 900 meters per second, resulting in a projectile with 1843 pounds of impact force, with a deflection characteristic, similar to the rebound of a ball, being able to enter a thorax and exit at the height of a clavicle. 7.62 by 51 is the caliber most used in machine guns and light guns, and moderately in sniper rifles, developed by NATO between the 50s and 60s. It is extremely lethal, due to its dimensions, capable of penetrating light armor, and any wall shot in bursts, is often confused with the 7.62 by 39 Soviet, but their differences are enormous. This one travels at a speed of 850 meters per second, weighing 150 grains, making it a heavy artillery ammunition. And to close with a flourish, we give the leading role to the 50 BMG, developed by John Moses Browning, in parallel with the Browning M2 machine gun. It is a bullet for anti-aircraft and anti-material use, which travels at 930 meters per second, with an enormous kinetic charge, capable of going through a house made of light materials from side to side. This is due to the fact that its enormous casing has a dimension of 3.8 inches full of gunpowder, and its bullet weighs 48 grams, which makes it, when detonated, it reaches a tremendous impact force of 18,000 joules, or 13,276 pounds, which generates a shock wave capable of splitting a torso in half, even a medium-sized animal. From the search for a medicine for immortality, to a projectile capable of knocking down a plane. This was Info Ballistic.